Thank you to Arena Club for sponsoring today's video.
The Toronto Blue Jays have put together their deepest postseason run in over 30 years this October, and I'm sure it has a lot of baseball fans reflecting on those early teams from the 1990s because of it. In 1992 and 1993, Toronto became one of the rare franchises to claim back-to-back World Series victories, playing some unforgettable games along the way. Their latter victory is remembered by Joe Carter's walk-off home run to win the series altogether, but before they could get there, they first had to endure one of the greatest and craziest World Series games ever played. On October 20th, 1993, the highest scoring game in World Series history unfolded before the nation's eyes, and it was as ugly as it was beautiful. The spark-plug Philadelphia Phillies, who went worst to first thanks to the efforts of MVP runner-up Lenny Dykstra and a young Curt Schilling, squared off against the powerhouse defending champion Toronto Blue Jays, who had a ferocious offense powered by Whamco, an extremely talented combination of 1 through 5 hitters that featured Devon White, Roberto Alomar, Paul Molitor, Joe Carter, and John Olerud. After 29 runs scored, 32 hits overall, 11 different pitchers used, and 367 pitches thrown, a winner of Game 4 of the 1993 World Series would finally be crowned. So let's hop on this roller coaster ride and see where it takes us. And also a quick shout out to Nike. Postseason baseball is going full throttle, and you know there's no one more trusted to get you postseason ready than Nike. So go check out our affiliate link in the description down below to shop amazing Nike postseason gear. Before we get to the game itself, let's get to know our competitors a little bit more. We'll start with the host of this game, a club that most baseball fans didn't expect to be anywhere near the Fall Classic, that being the 1993 Philadelphia Phillies. No one expected it because a year prior, the club went 70-92 to finish firmly in last place in the NL East division. That would be the Phillies' 7th losing season in their last 8 years, and after this season, the Phillies would go on a postseason drought that lasted through the 2006 campaign. The achievements of this 1993 squad were truly remarkable, and the textbook definition of a baseball anomaly. But through cultivating an identity that made them look shaggy, unkempt, and dirty, they found success. The team that preceded the 1993 squad featured many of the same pillars of this team, most notably catcher Darren Daulton, who led the National League in runs batted in and won a Silver Slugger. They of course also had John Kruk, who set a career best with a .323 batting average in 1992. Although me personally, I'm a bigger fan of John Kruk commentary highlights than baseball highlights, but that's just me.
Hey!
If I ever become a vegan, would you just punch me in the face as hard as you can? The first clock ever.
Okay.
How did that person know what time it was?
3-2. What the hell was that? I don't know what that was.
I keep dancing on my own. Come on! I don't want to dance on my own.
Lenny Dykstra, formerly a World Series champion with the division rival Mets, dealt with injuries and lost half of his season in 1992. Outside of Curt Schilling, who led the league in hit per nine and whip as a 25-year-old, the pitching staff struggled throughout the season. It made complete sense that this team lost as many games as they did. But they had a very productive bout of free agency, adding both Jim Eisenreich and Pete Incaviglia. Eisenreich would go on to hit for an absurd .324 batting average over his 4 years in Philadelphia, and Incaviglia, nicknamed Inky and Load, why is he nicknamed Load, set a career best with 24 home runs in 1993. The stars of their lineup continued to be stars, boosted by a full healthy season from center fielder Lenny Dykstra. Dykstra led the league in plate appearances, runs scored, hits, and walks drawn, posting a career best .902 on-base plus slugging on the season. And if not for Barry Bonds' existence, he might have taken home the National League MVP award too. He became just the second player in MLB history to hit 40 doubles, steal 30 bases, and draw 100 walks in a season to that point. After him, only Jeff Bagwell and Bobby Abreu have done so since, with the latter doing so 4 times in his underrated career. The 1993 Phillies are the only team in the expansion era to feature 3 different players with over 100 walks in Darren Daulton, Lenny Dykstra, and John Kruk. As a whole, this offensive unit was potent, leading the National League in hits, walks, on-base percentage, and total bases by a healthy margin. A full decade before the 2002 Moneyball A's came around, the 1993 Phillies employed a very similar philosophy. Get a bunch of dudes who get on base. Don't worry about that long ball. 6 different players on this team registered an on-base clip better than 350, joining a short list of teams in the past 30 years. As I mentioned before, the rotation was spearheaded by a young Curt Schilling. But Terry Mulholland was not far behind, as he would start the All-Star game in the National League that year. The Phillies started the season 17-5 in the month of April, which for a long time stood as their best record in the first month of the season up until the 2024 team. One of those wins was an 8-0 comeback against the San Francisco Giants, displaying the team's resiliency and ability to put together large rallies out of thin air. A year after losing 90 games, these Phillies won 90 97 games to claim the NL East Division title, their first in 10 years. They were a team that got in the dirt, played rough and hard, and appeared and acted like it on and off the field. And by juxtaposition, the 1993 Blue Jays couldn't be more different in appearance. They were clean-cut champions, but these teams won the same way. They banged the ball around. A year after winning the Fall Classic, the 1993 Blue Jays returned to the field as a far stronger offensive unit, improving on the previous team's marks in runs scored, stolen bases, and triple slash line. They managed this while losing their primary designated hitter, the legendary slugger Dave Winfield. But if I was a GM and I was losing a future Hall of Fame slugger in my lineup, you know what I would do? I would just add another Hall of Fame slugger. Hire me, guys. I'm open. I'm available. The franchise face of Milwaukee would don a new uniform for the first time in his then 15-year career as Paul Molitor came over to the Toronto Blue Jays and had his best season. He set career highs in home runs and runs batted in while finishing runner-up in MVP voting, much like Lenny Dykstra in the opposing league. Outside of that transition, most of this offensive roster returned for more action. John Olerud continued his ascension with a league-leading OPS over 1,000 at age 24, also taking the top spot in batting average and on-base percentage. He's one of just 11 players in the expansion era with an OPS that high while being 24 years old or younger, a list that includes Albert Pujols, Ken Griffey Jr., Bryce Harper, and Alex Rodriguez. Roberto Alomar stole over 50 bases and posted an OPS over 900, one of only 6 players to accomplish this in the last 30 years of baseball. Funnily enough, his teammate Ricky Henderson, who was a trade deadline acquisition, is also on this list. Joe Carter clubbed 30 home runs for the 4th time in 5 years. Devon White nabbed another Gold Glove and All-Star nod out in center field, and Tony Fernandez returned to the team where he started out in another midseason acquisition to play shortstop. All of these forces combined to give Toronto the most runs scored of any American League team, in addition to the lead in stolen bases, batting average, and slugging percentage as well. The batting title race that year was Canada dominated, with Roberto Alomar, Paul Molitor, and John Olerud finishing in the top 3 spots in the American League. The pitching staff, on the other hand, though, featured a lot of turnover between seasons. Toronto definitely lost more than they gained between 1992 and 1993. World Series hero David Cone was out on a 3-year contract with the Kansas City Royals. Franchise legend Dave Stieb looked for a clean slate and signed with the White Sox. Jimmy Key, who won 2 World Series games in 1992, signed with the division rival Yankees. They also lost their fantastic closer of many years, Tom Henke, who departed for the Texas Rangers after a 3rd consecutive 30-save season as one of the best relievers in the game. In addition to losing 3 of their starters, ace Jack Morris took a massive step backwards in production as well. But like any good championship team would, Toronto filled the holes the best they could. Longtime setup man Dwayne Ward stepped up into the primary closer role and flourished, leading the AL in saves in 1993. Youngster Pat Henkin emerged as a reliable option and would go on to win a Cy Young just a few years later. Veteran Dave Stewart came over from the Oakland A's and had a great year at age 36. Despite their rotation ERA rising by a full run between seasons, the pitching staff was able to do enough to support an offense that was blowing every other team out of the water. The Blue Jays came into possession of first place in the AL East on June 26, and they only let go of that spot for 1 day for the remainder of the season. After 95 wins, they went on to beat the White Sox in the ALCS, setting up a date with the Philadelphia Phillies in the Fall Classic.
I want to thank Arena Club for sponsoring today's video. Arena Club's original slab packs bring the thrill of ripping packs combined with the power to buy, sell, and trade all in one place. Arena Club is the most trusted name in the game. They offer full transparency, showing every card in the pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy. From your digital showroom, you can trade, sell, auction, or retrieve your physical card from the Arena Club vault. The packs are digital, but the cards are real. With every slab pack, Arena Club will make you an instant offer for your card, based on its market value. That's right, no guessing, no waiting. You'll get an instant offer based on the estimated fair market value, and you can accept it on the spot. Simple, fast, and risk-free. Chase your own grails at arenaclub.com/jollyolive and get 20% off your first pack with code JOLLYOLIVE. Check out the link down below, and thank you to Arena Club for sponsoring today's video.
After splitting the first 2 games of this World Series, Toronto grabbed a series lead with a commanding 10-3 win on the road in Game 3. They did this without being able to play John Olerud due to the National League pitcher hitting rule, eliminating Paul Molitor's natural spot. The decision to play the veteran over the youngster proved fruitful, with Molitor's 2-run triple in the first inning setting the tone for the remainder of the game. That finally takes us to October 20th, 1993, Game 4 of the World Series. We're in Philadelphia at Veterans Stadium, and the forecast has rain on the way, so hopefully we'll be able to get this game in quick. Right, guys? Right? Getting the ball in a must-win game for the Phillies was right-hander Tommy Green, fresh off dealing a quality start in the NLCS clinching Game 6 victory. The 16-game winner was greeted rudely, though, by the potent top of the Blue Jays lineup. Ricky Henderson, required at the midseason deadline to hit leadoff every day, ropes a double to the gap to kick things off. After Devon White and Joe Carter reach to load the bases, Tommy Green gets a king-sized out by navigating around John Olerud, who's back in the lineup today. This will come into play later. With 2 outs and the bases loaded, the first pivotal pitch of the night comes earlier than most have expected. Tommy Green fails his first test, though, walking Paul Molitor on 4 relatively uncompetitive pitches. Molitor racked up his 10th playoff RBI, fresh off a 3-hit, 3 RBI performance the night prior. Another deadline acquisition, Tony Fernandez, would pad the lead with a 2-run single, making it a 3-0 Toronto cushion early for their starting pitcher, Todd Stottlemyre. But tonight, he'd put together one of the worst outings of his career. It started like most rallies did for Philadelphia back then, with Lenny Dykstra working a walk, then promptly stealing second base. With 2 outs, Stottlemyre's control issues continued, as he issued 3 more walks to the middle of the order, allowing a run to score. Milt Thompson, up with the bases loaded and 2 outs, rocks a pitch to center field that narrowly stretches out of the reach of Devon White, clearing the bases and delivering Philadelphia an improbable 4-3 first inning lead. After over 40 pitches thrown by the Blue Jays hurler, the first inning finally comes to a close. But the bleeding wouldn't stop there, both figuratively and literally. After Todd Stottlemyre improbably reached on a walk in his first professional at-bat, his attempt at going first to third with 2 outs resulted in not only an ugly base-running lowlight, but a gash to his chin when he face-planted on the turf during his slide. In his own words, Stottlemyre remarked that, "When I hit the ground, I went black. I don't know what happened really. I blacked out for a while, and when I got up, I went out to the mound and just tried to throw the ball down the middle of the plate." You know, like any good pitcher would do in a World Series game, just try to throw the ball down the middle of the plate, man. Doing his best to keep his chin up, I'm here all week, folks. The Phillies added to their lead after pitcher Tommy Green reached base on a single and scored on Lenny Dykstra's big 2-run homer in the second frame. But the Blue Jays offense once again stormed right back, not needing the long ball. John Olerud drew another walk before the middle of the lineup strung together 3 consecutive singles to draw the deficit to a single run. In a 6-5 game, the Blue Jays had the bases loaded and 2 outs yet again. This time it was Devon White who played hero, delivering Toronto a 7-6 lead with the 4th hit of the inning, a 2-run single against the first man out of the Philadelphia bullpen, Roger Mason. For a moment, the game would return to normalcy after the Blue Jays regained the lead. Al Leiter came out from the Toronto bullpen and pitched the first 1-2-3 inning of the contest, but the Phillies would get to him just an inning later, tying the game with a 2-out RBI single from Mariano Duncan in the 4th inning, making it a 7-7 game. Mariano Duncan, of course, being the brother of Mariano Rivera. What's that? Sorry, I got that wrong. Mariano Duncan, of course, being the brother of Shelly Duncan. I mean, look, they look just alike. The 5th inning began with a bunt single to third base off the bat of Dave Hollins on the Phillies. Philadelphia was keen to exploit Toronto's weaker defensive lineup. As I mentioned before, there was no DH spot available, so John Olerud had to ride the bench in Game 3 to let Paul Molitor play first base. Manager Cito Gaston made a pivotal decision to play Molitor at third base in this game, his unnatural position, so that John Olerud could play first base and get in the lineup, hoping that the offense would offset any defensive woes. In this moment, the decision by their manager backfired, as Darren Daulton would follow with a 2-run home run off Al Leiter to once again give the Phillies the lead. The inning would unravel for Al Leiter from there, allowing 3 more hits, including Lenny Dykstra's second 2-run home run of the contest to blow the game open in Philadelphia's favor. As the steady drizzle turned into a downpour, so too did the Phillies offense, who would explode for a 5-run 5th inning. Al Leiter exited the game having allowed as many hits as outs recorded, with the Phillies now leading 12-7 halfway through the contest. And from here, the game would grow as confusing as it was eventful to this point. Apparently, the bullpen phone in the Blue Jays dugout just straight up wasn't working in this game, so when manager Cito Gaston opted for a change, the wrong reliever initially came into the game. He wanted left-hander Tony Castillo, who hadn't even thrown a warm-up pitch yet because he didn't know anyone wanted him to because the phones weren't working. So Tony Castillo has to come out and do a full warm-up on the mound, and for the rest of the game, Both teams used walkie-talkies to communicate with the bullpen. I'm not kidding. Speaking of bullpen work, David West followed, who was one of the 3 best relievers in the Phillies bullpen. The Blue Jays, however, would chip away 2 runs against David West to narrow the deficit to just 3 runs, before the aforementioned lefty, Tony Castillo, gave a run right back to the Phillies in the bottom half of the 6th inning. Peculiarly, with a short-handed bullpen, Cito Gaston allowed the reliever Tony Castillo to have an at-bat in the top of the 7th, hoping to squeeze another inning out of his lefty as opposed to using a pinch hitter. Castillo understandably struck out looking, and Toronto went down 1-2-3 in that inning. In Castillo's next inning of work, the carousel continued for the Phillies. After a pair of walks and a bases-loaded hit by pitch gave the Phillies their 5-run margin back, many Blue Jays players felt as if they were starting to punt this game. In the words of Joe Carter,
a situation where Cito wanted to save the bullpen, we thought that, we'll look more towards tomorrow.
But they had no idea the fireworks that were still in store for this rainy night. The Blue Jays order was left with just 6 outs to make some magic happen. In comes Larry Anderson, who had just dealt a 1-2-3 inning the frame prior. He was back out for the 8th inning, hoping to secure the bridge to closer Mitch Williams. With 2 runners on and 1 out, the most pivotal play of the game unfolded. Paul Molitor hit a ball down the third base line that feasibly could have been an inning-ending double play. Instead, it skipped through the glove of Dave Hollins and down the line for a run-scoring double, as the Phillies returned the poor defensive favor to their opponent. This wasn't called an error. In 2025, I guess I can understand that because they're very lenient these days with what's an error, but back then, that's an error, man. You really let him off the hook there. I don't know. Let me know what you think. That spelled the end of the night for Larry Anderson, who vacated the mound for Mitch Williams. The real-life Wild Thing would try and secure a 5-out save to even up the World Series, something he had only accomplished twice in the regular season to that point. In a pivotal at-bat, the switch-hitting Tony Fernandez came up incredibly clutch once again with an RBI single to his pull side. The light-hitting shortstop was surely the unsung MVP of this game, finishing the night with 3 hits and 5 runs batted in total, none bigger than this one. The Wild Thing lived up to his nickname, walking the 8-hitter Pat Borders, a catcher who had an on-base percentage of just .285 that season. Mitch Williams would retire the pinch hitter via strikeout, leading back to the top of the order, still staked to a 3-run lead. There was still a way out of this mess, but staring him down from the right-handed batter's box was the legendary Rickey Henderson. He had yet to make his stamp on this series, but Henderson made Williams pay dearly in this moment. Rickey singled to center field, sending home a pair of runs to bring the score to a nail-bitingly close 14-13. Lenny Dykstra got caught in between here, and while it wouldn't have been an easy play, a diving attempt at this sinking line drive could have been all the difference in this game and maybe this series. Mitch Williams had thrown 15 pitches and only gotten 1 out, but the Phillies still had a lead, and he only had 1 more out to get. Devon White stepped in next, and the center fielder flared a line drive to the opposite gap, sending Lenny Dykstra to the wall. 2 runs scored with ease, Devon White hightailed it to third base for a go-ahead triple, and the defending champions had successfully erased their second 5-run deficit of this game alone. Unbelievably, the Blue Jays now led 15-14, needing just 6 outs to steal a magic win on the road. The Philadelphia faithful, dampened with rain and confusion, could barely watch on as the horrors unfolded at Veterans Stadium. A 1-run lead was no guarantee for Toronto. Into the game came Mike Timlin. The usually erratic right-hander sat down both Kevin Stalker and Mickey Morandini via strikeout before departing, paving the way for perhaps the only reliable man in the Blue Jays bullpen, closer Dwayne Ward. Ward, whose career year landed him in the top 5 for AL Cy Young voting, pitched just 4 more games after this 1993 World Series run, with the end of his career marred with various injuries. But on this rainy October night, Dwayne Ward was healthy, and he was ready to slam the door shut on an unlikely comeback victory. Ward struck out the MVP runner-up Lenny Dykstra, then returned for the 9th inning. He induced a first pitch pop-up, then battled John Kruk for 8 pitches, emerging victorious with a strikeout. Up stepped Dave Hollins, whose miscue earlier on set course to the whole Blue Jays rally. Hollins gave one a ride, but not nearly deep enough. After 4 hours, 29 runs scored, 46 base runners, and a nauseating amount of ups and downs, the Toronto Blue Jays somehow emerged from Game 4 with a 3-1 series lead. And the players in this game only partially understood how crazy this game truly was.
You always dream of playing in a World Series, but then a game like that makes you wonder why.
Rickey Henderson said that he had never been in a game more competitive than that one. This is a man who played in over 3,000 MLB games throughout his career. Paul Molitor, a future Hall of Famer, deemed it the most exciting win he's ever been a part of, and it's hard to argue. Toronto's 15 runs without a single home run hit is the most runs scored in a World Series game without a long ball in the history of the league. The Blue Jays went 10 for 23 with runners in scoring position on the night. For 25 years, this game stood as the longest World Series game in the history of the league as well, at 4 hours and 14 minutes, only to be beaten handily by the 18-inning marathon between the Red Sox and Dodgers in 2018. The Phillies got this series back to Toronto thanks to a complete game shutout by Curt Schilling in Game 5, but the loss in Game 4 was a backbreaker for their championship hopes. What's often forgotten is that before Joe Carter's heroic moment in Game 6, the Phillies had surged back from a 5-1 deficit and led going into the 9th inning. But most baseball fans know how that story ends. Mitch Williams takes the ball, Joe Carter lifts one to left field, and he makes sure to touch them all, because he'll never hit a bigger home run in his life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, is the craziest World Series game ever played. It might be the best, although certain moments of this game were certainly sloppy as well. I mean, can we truly call a game that had 14 walks in it the best World Series game ever played? I'll let you decide in the comments down below. If you have a different answer, let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. That'll do it for me though, and I'll see you guys next time.